Have you ever wondered about taxes and how that all affects you with your end of year planning, or even looking forward into the next year? Well, look no further. We have got an accountant with us today, and he's going to take us through some things that are pertinent to educators. So sit back, listen, look, and learn. So thank you for joining us for the Finance for Teachers video blog. Thanks for coming along again. We are joined today by Anthony Baldassano. He is a CPA. I work with him professionally, personally, and refer clients to him as well. So we have a great working relationship. He has joined us today. He's going to give us 4 tips that are specific to teachers in their situation and are really going to help with your tax planning. So Anthony, go ahead and tell us who you are, a little bit about yourself, and we can jump right in.
All right. Well, thank you, Dave, for the opportunity to talk to your group here, and especially teachers. I have quite a few clients that are teachers, so this is near and dear to my heart. My wife's a teacher. Most of her family have teachers as well, so I love teachers. A little bit about me. I'm a CPA. And I've been a CPA for almost 20 years now. I have a undergrad in finance and I have a master's in accounting. So I've been practicing on myself for a little over 5 years. But in the past, I've worked in a big public accounting firm and a private practice as well. So just excuse me, more than happy to share some thoughts and tips for you guys today.
Sure. Well, let's jump right in. Let's go to number 1. What do you have for us?
Okay, well, the first one is probably one that most people know about, but it's important to bring up, and that's the educator expense deduction. Teachers are allowed to deduct $250 worth of unreimbursed classroom expenses, such as lesson planning materials, classroom supplies, anything that's paid out of pocket and used in the classroom. Other examples would be stationery, classroom prizes, a briefcase, stopwatches, decorations, things like that. The good thing about that is it's an above the line deduction, and not to get technical, but basically means if you don't itemize and you take the standard deduction, you're still allowed to get this deduction as well. And if your spouse is also a teacher, you can get a maximum up to $500. So example, if you have $400 expenses and your spouse has $100, you can deduct $250 for yourself and then $100 for your spouse. So the total is $350, not $500.
Those are some good classifications. I think that's the important part too. We have a lot of young teachers who watch, so even if you don't itemize, you can still use this, which I think is key.
Correct. Exactly. And even though on the form it says maximum 250, remember if your spouse is in education and fits one of those categories, they can take that deduction as well.
Excellent.
Then the next big area is what I call unreimbursed employee deductions. These are items that you would take on your itemized deduction form, which is also called Schedule A. These are miscellaneous, they're called miscellaneous deductions. And I'm not going to get into the mechanics of how to take that, but that's something that you could address with your tax preparer. I just want to go through some of the ones that you would want to consider. First would be books and newspapers. If you have a personal books or magazines, subscriptions for your personal professional library or the classroom library, you can deduct those. Mileage. Tracking and deducting mileage. Currently for 2013, the mileage deduction is 56.5 cents a mile. So if your teaching position requires that you travel from school to school maybe, or to students' homes, you can deduct that mileage. If you have to use your own car for school purposes like driving to field trips, competitions, sporting events, that mileage might be deductible as well. Another category would be software. Go ahead and interrupt me.
No, I was going to say one clarification there. I've had this question come up with mileage. It doesn't include commuting. That doesn't count.
Exactly. Very good point. Yeah. Even if you live 50 miles away or whatever, you cannot deduct that commuting mile. Good point. Software and computer equipment, that's another area to look at. You can claim the cost of classroom software and computer equipment that you use for planning purposes. You want to keep a diary. I mean, anything we talk about today, you want to have a log or keep the receipts for that. It's important. So you can, for example, you grade papers at home and you need to use the internet, or you converse via email, that time you can deduct on your individual return.
Awesome. So when does it kind of blur the lines of, okay, so I bought a software package, I bought Word on my computer at home. Yeah, I use it for school, but I also use it for personal use. How does that play out?
Well, it's kind of facts and circumstances, but generally, if it's something that there's a business purpose for it. For example, you probably need to have Word at home, but generally, a lot of times, employers as well as schools will give you a copy of Microsoft Office. So check, that you might not have to buy it. So if it's available for you from the school, I would say that that's not going to be deductible for that second copy.
Okay.
But really, kind of, it's a facts and circumstances, and I would, recommend talking to your tax professional about that, whether it falls in that category. One thing that you got to watch for, and I've seen some aggressive tax preparers push for home office deduction. So, for example, if a teacher spends, has a room, a third bedroom or second bedroom, and they use that as an office to grade papers and prepare lesson plans and things like that, then they say, oh, well, then therefore you can take the home office deduction. And I would err to say that is probably not recommended. Generally, most schools, you have a desk, that's your place of business. So I would caution before you reach into that area.
So you mean when my wife grades and papers are all over the couch, that's not counted as a home office deduction?
Well, yeah, probably not. Yes. Another area would be school loan interest. So this is kind of outside of moving outside of the standard deductions.
Okay.
I'm sorry, the itemized deductions rather. Student loan interest. So a teacher may be able to deduct interest that they paid on school loans up to about $4,000 of higher education expenses per year. Again, this is above the line deduction, so it's very similar to the educator tax deduction, where you can take it regardless of whether you itemize it or not. So for the younger teachers out there, first-year teachers, you probably have a lot of school debt, probably maybe have student loans. This is definitely one you want to take.
All right, so what if we've got some older teachers who are watching, they're paying their kids' way through school. How does it work when parents are paying those loans too? Do they get to deduct that as well?
They do, actually. Yeah, you can deduct it on the parent could pay it. They don't have to be an educator in school or anything like that, but the general rules will allow that the parent can deduct the interest expense on their tax.
Okay, that's good to know.
And then the final one I want to talk about is the education credits and deductions. So, teachers that are professors or anyone who's looking to renew their teaching license or improve their skills, they can take a lifetime learning credit. So, and then there's another option, which is a tuition and fees deduction. So there's a credit or a deduction. Again, we don't have time to go into that, but if you want to talk to your tax professional on that, I just want to make that aware that you can deduct, any type of professional development expenses to get that credit. So it's really important too.
I think another important part along with that is I know that some districts reimburse education expenses. Some are saying, you know what, this is on your dime. So and correct my understanding if it's wrong, if you're reimbursed for that, you're not eligible for any credits on that side because you didn't actually pay for it. You got reimbursed.
And that's an excellent point. any of the things that we talked about, whether they're a deduction, any type of reimbursement that you get from the district, you cannot deduct on your if you get a stipend or some type of money that is added to your salary, well, then you can do it because you're paying tax on your income.
Okay.
You're tax on that income. So, and there's a kind of a bonus here. I didn't put it in my notes, but you just kind of, when you think about it, if you do any type of side work or anything where you're going to get a 1099, so maybe you do some, consulting or something that instead of issuing or getting the W-2, you get a 1099. That opens up a whole other door of opportunity to deduct a lot of the expenses we talked about here for mileage and supplies and things like that, but it would be reported on a different schedule. So just remember, if you get 1099 for $500, that doesn't mean you have to pay tax all on $500. That you might be able to deduct some of the expenses to earn that income.
Excellent. That's kind of like a fire hose, Anthony. Nice job.
Accountants, we just kind of like boom, 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 boom. You say, hey, I got 8 minutes. I gotta, let me just whip through my my list here. So,
and it was
a marketer, maybe you would still be on point 1, right?
Yeah, going through every other iteration we can find for that same thing.
Right.
No, that was good. That was very succinct. I'm sure a lot of people got some great information from that they can use in tax season, so I appreciate that.
Anytime. Thanks a lot.
Sure. Well, if you've enjoyed this short tidbit video of tax tips, we have a lot more videos coming later on the blog for you to see, so feel free to tune in. Anthony, I'm sure, will be back giving more tips as we go along throughout the year and on different subjects, so you'll see his face again. Anthony, thanks so much for your time. We really appreciate it, and your knowledge too, so thank you so much.
Thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity.